I'm not bad. I'm just drawn that way.
Are you scared? We're all scared. You'd have to be crazy not to be scared.
Everyone knows the famous phrase, some scenes may be unsuitable for young children, but has it held up over the decades? We're going to find out. Exactly my point there. This is Mark with Skinny E Media and our usual Bobbitron or Rob Bavister. And we're going to be talking about the PG, parental guidance, which, out of curiosity for anyone who's listening, is my favorite rating of all time. And I'll explain a little further as to why. But I'll let you start off with things first, Rob, as always.
Okie dokie, Ben. Sorry, what? Sorry, was there a question? Was there something you wanted me to lead into, or a question you asked? If you did, I didn't quite catch it. What was the?
Oh, it was sort of like a baiting tactic, whether I would have you say something about, the PG, it doesn't hold up because now it's, just for another kid's rating, or you'll talk about your early experiences with PG. That's what I was trying to bait you to do.
Oh, right. Well, why not? By all means, why not? Now, just to let anyone know, it was my suggestion to do this, a podcast surrounding this rating because the whole subject of our podcast, tenuously, at the very least, is America's MPAA versus Britain's BBFC. And of course, they're not too difficult to compare, but they can be a little bit tricky at times. I mean, they've both got five different ratings. Well, technically BB has 6, but we don't talk about the 6th one. But of course, one similarity they do have is they both have the PG rating. So of course, that's the easiest method in which to compare them. So I decided to basically do this one, and Mark was gracious enough to allow it be a subject. Thank you, Mark.
Hey, no problem. I let him do the video games one before, so I thought might as well give him a try because I'm kind of running out of ideas myself. But hopefully, we'll let Rob speak on this even more than even I will.
Don't worry, Mark. You run out of ideas, just ask me if anything I want to do, and I'll let you. And I'll feed them to you. And I'll run them through your filter system. Do you think if you're cool or not?
Hey, as always.
Well, so I mean, I can say my experience with a PG rating. I mean, fucking hell. I mean, everyone's had a child experience with a PG rating, or maybe the A rating, as it was prior to 1982 over here. But let's face it, it's over 40 years old, the British PG rating, and the American one is, well, actually about 54 years old, because I think it came in 1970, because originally the MPA had M, then it was GP, then PG. Most films, most people would have seen at cinema on both sides of the Atlantic would either be G or U rated, but obviously very early ones would also be PG. And so yeah, I mean, it's just weird how the rating has morphed over time, because originally did mean parental guidance. Like you can say, like, kids can see it. It's not necessarily for kids. It's more like the family friendly go-to rating. Boy, has that lost itself over years. You know, I think it's been said enough, but I'm going to say it again because it bears repeating: from Jaws to Frozen. And I think that if that doesn't say it all, I don't know what does.
No, but it's true. I mean, I've seen the evolution of it myself. This is someone who grew up on classics like Men in Black, Small Soldiers, Ants, Edward Scissorhands. Those were films I held very highly in regards to seeing when I was a child. Who Framed Roger Rabbit, and then obviously, Toy Story, but that's a UK PG, not a US one. Those are films that remain in my heart, in my top 20, top 30 films. And I sometimes will cry even thinking about it. But now be more or less utilized for just any old kids film these days, especially on the US end of things. It does bother me a little bit because it also chips at the nostalgia, but also makes it feel like, well, exactly what room is there for you anyways? And we discussed this on a previous podcast with the U certificate as to, having more weight to it with stuff like Hunchback of Notre Dame and the Oliver Twist musical from the 60s to now just Despicable Me and Minions. It's still family friendly, but it's kind of lost some of its power.
Yeah, it's a weird juxtaposition I found actually, because you look back at when you want to compare the BBFC PG to the MPAA PG, it's like in the and you see one, are they on to, or if one's more permissive, which one is it? But it's never that consistent, because in the 80s it was clearly the MPAA PG, but in the 90s that went completely 180 and it became the BBFC PG that was more permissive. Because in the 80s you've got films like Gremlins and
The Temple
Beetlejuice.
of Doom.
Pardon?
Temple of Doom.
Yeah, I was going to say Temple of Doom. I was going to say that. Conan the Destroyer, Caddyshack 2, Big technically as well, because it had and a Karate Kid. I mean, those weren't quite so out of bounds, but I mean, Top Gun as well. You know, those PG-rated films which were not getting rated PG here, at least not in their uncut form. And it was just Beastmaster was another one, I think. Actually, was Beastmaster a PG over here with 15? I'm gonna have to double check. Please bear with me. Beastmaster. Or was it Beastmaster?
Don't forget
Okay.
Footloose as well.
No, Footloose. That's another one. Yeah, absolutely correct. No, Beastmaster was a 15. Oh, we'll cut down to a PG, I guess, at the cinema. But yeah, 15 uncut, 15 on video. Footloose. Yeah, again. Or maybe a cut down to a PG at the cinema because it's a 15 on video. So yeah, those examples. Then somewhere along the way, I guess it has become the PG-13 rating became more ubiquitous for family-friendly entertainment, and PG started to get relegated. You start to see the old switch. This is where things started to change, because I guess it started. The first one I could think of is a Little Shop of Horrors, but then also, ironically, there was the Indiana Jones of the Last Crusade. But as we went to the 90s, you had Arachnophobia, Jurassic Park and its two sequels, The Mask, Mission Impossible, Fifth Element, Small Soldiers, and Godzilla. But then again, that's not in order. And finally, Fellowship of the Ring, all of which, whilst PG-13 rated in America, all got completely uncut PG ratings over here. Obviously, we know why, because of the restricted 12 rating, which has changed since the transition to 12A. But also, I mean, there's Memoirs of Invisible Man and Men in Black, which, whilst cut for their PGs, the cuts were so minimal you barely even notice them.
Well, if you look at some of the old films, that can be the case there. Or, even ones that are a little bit more drastic, as I know Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves, which is certainly discussed about quite a lot on any sort of censorship podcasts for BBFC. People always thought that was awfully strong there, and that was PG-13 stateside, but PG here because they wanted to get the mass market appeal. But because I didn't see that film growing up, I don't know why, but
I've seen it. I had
the rape,
once or twice.
attempted rape, and the severing of someone's hand, and some of the extended violence and hanging. That's absolutely inappropriate at PG, especially the attempted rape.
Well,
I can't keep all this racket.
Yeah, well, the scene where they cut his hand of it dangled, I think that was cut for the cinema, along with the singular F-bomb mentioned by Christian Slater's character at the cinema. But then they started adding uncuts for the video. But I have to admit, by PG standards, it was pretty strong, even what's left in. I felt it was the same about that Witches film, Roald Dahl, The Witches. That's made it. Well, that was PG in America, so make of that what you will.
Well, that
Yeah.
one does count, and I always hear from people that movies scared the shit out of them when they were children.
Oh,
Now,
put
having
shit
seen
through me.
James and the Giant Peach, because they're both based on Roald Dahl and Matilda, I speak on a slightly different level, but you were frightened by witches, I presume.
The Witches, yeah, I did find it a little bit unnerve-wracking, yes.
Because I heard some rumor, at least on movie censorship or something, that the movie was trimmed down slightly by BBFC policy, mainly because of some transformation sequence where the boy turns into a rat or something. I'm
Yeah,
probably wrong on this.
no. If you look at the alternate versions on IMDb, all UK versions were cut by 2 seconds to secure a PG rating. The mouse transformation was slightly shortened, and a shot of a witch's bloody scalp when she removes her wig was removed.
I kind of guessed that. I mean, it is a bit gruesome when you think about it, but it does go to show, at least at the time, horror films could exist before you get to the 15 and 18 levels. Then it does, make
Whims-
me happy on some level because got
a
stuff like,
whimsical horror film. There's a whimsical one. I think that's why. Most of these PG-13 horror films that get rated 15 aren't what you describe as whimsical. Again, this is just me, just throwing it out there.
well, you're right, because
But
I mean, something wicked this way comes, or the Watcher in the Woods. Those were Disney films that were horrors, but they were PG or A certificate. And then, obviously, Nightmare Before Christmas. That was one of my favorite films when I was growing up. Although it doesn't quite hold up compared to Corpse Bride. That's a horror film at PG, and that was at a time where animated films weren't being rated PG as much. They were always almost saying U. So that
well,
does
well,
scratch my head a little bit.
well, yeah. I mean, animated films didn't get rated PG too much back in the days. There's no back in the days of Furman. I mean, Black Cauldron, was a U here, but was a PG in America. Now we Brits could probably snark and say, well, we're just tougher and everything, but I mean, I don't think we can really sit on that one.
Or
We
maybe a
could
better
use
example.
we could use Watership Down as a better example, but I mean, again, it's not so. That's just more just Berman just not being asleep, just not knowing what he's doing. Oh bloody hell! Something wicked this way comes was 12 in France.
What? That's the same rating as Jaws, because that in France it's known as Interdit en moins de 2 ans, which probably they thought, oh, this is pushing it a little bit, but most of the old school kids films, at least Gen X and millennials, depends on which millennial, mostly 80s ones over 90s, they grew up with some quite fucked up shit. We're not censoring this like we do the U certificate one, so we are going to swear, of course.
Right.
And, it makes you wonder a little bit as well.
Well, I guess, but Jaws was apparently originally too public in France. But that's neither here nor there right now.
Well,
There was
what Roger
uh,
Rabbit? I forgot to even mention that one. I know I mentioned it earlier on. I don't know if you saw that film at the cinema as a kid,
well,
but
if
I
I
saw
did,
it
I
on
don't remember.
TV.
If I did, I don't remember seeing it. I don't think I saw any films at the cinema in the 80s. At least I don't remember. But then again, my memories of anything that happens in the 80s are going to be very, very limited. Because I was 4 when they ended. They may have taken me to see it, or they may have also taken me to see Honey, I Shrunk the Kids. I don't think they did. I mean, I don't know, but I have seen Who Framed Roger Rabbit enough times. Yeah, it's kind of a yeah, but that's an old school PG. Yeah, it's got some risque comments in it and all that. Yeah.
Because anytime I talk to people about that movie, some people treat it almost like an animation at the same level as something like South Park or Family Guy or perhaps The Simpsons, which I kind of guess. It's like ants. It's not so family friendly that the whole, you bring stupid kids to see because there's a bit more adult humor sort of going on. And also, I've heard a lot of people say that scene with the the shoe being dipped into acid and there's blood on Judge Doom's hands scared the shit out of them when they were kids, and the Judge Doom's eyes bugging out. And then there's another side of people, probably in my camp, who masturbated to Jessica Rabbit because they thought cartoon women were sexy. Unfortunately,
Yes,
Jessica
we know
Rabbit
about
is
a lot
as
about
fit
that.
as Lucy from Elf and Lee. But that's another story.
It is
Moving
quite.
on.
Well, the use of bastard only when the use of son of a bitch in the movie, according to IMDb. Yeah, you can tell I'm very addicted to that website. Yeah, I suppose there's a bit of sexual references in it as well, but nothing too much.
Well, at least they got
Which,
it right instead of with Worship Down, which they made way too low.
oh fuck yeah! I mean, no, I don't usually when there's a discrepancy between the BBFC and the MPAA, I generally agree with the one that gave it the more lenient rating. Not in that case. The MPAA were right; it was a bit PG.
Oh, absolutely there. I know earlier on you said about arachnophobia, and
Yeah.
I won't bring up the R word, RoboCop, but I'm sure that was a movie that traumatized you when you were growing up, and I've seen it like just
I didn't see
recently.
it. Well, I didn't see it much when the first time I even heard of it was when I was 10 or anything. It was on TV, but I didn't watch it. I've watched it a few times a bit later when I was in my teens, and yeah, obviously it put the shits for me because it's just spiders, and the spiders give me the shits. I suppose if you watch it now, you may realize that the giant Queen General spiders at the end are clearly models that are very corny and everything, but still, they're enough to. But oh god, it can still loosen your bowels quite a bit.
Well, I don't need to know about people's diarrhea, but that is probably one of the films I can think of, along with Jaws and Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves, where James Furman probably either was too drunk to remember what decision he should have made, or Steven Spielberg probably bribed them, because I know Steven Spielberg was somehow involved with arachnophobia. I'm probably wrong on this.
I haven't seen his name
What the
ever
fuck?
attached to the project, but I don't think I don't. I mean, it could be. Sorry, well, I'll start again. Actually, where am I going with this? Is yeah, I don't know if Steven Spielberg was involved in arachnophobia. I mean, I suppose when you look at it, yeah, it does actually is quite very old school PG. But then again, there are a lot of PG rate films back in the 90s which obviously wouldn't get rated that day, and they felt that they had to rate them PG just so parents could get their kids to see it. Although why kids would be clamoring to see a film about killer spiders, I don't know. They would always
Well,
shit themselves.
you'll be surprised. I mean, I've met people who say they saw Nightmare on Elm Street or Halloween and stuff, and those are rated R films, X or 18, when they were like
Yeah, I know.
6 or 8 or 10, and I'm like, I never had that experience. I would have never been allowed to watch those movies that young. What
Yeah,
kind of
well, like I say, I mean,
parents did you have?
but yeah, I can't vouch for stuff like that. Oh no, here it says production on Wikipedia. Steven Spielberg was involved with arachnophobia, and Frank Marshall, one of his early producers, directing for the first time. Spielberg and Marshall were the film's executive producers. Oh, okay, right. So he had some available. I don't think he would have. I doubt he bribed the I doubt he bribed the BBFC though. I mean, I don't know if they were susceptible to taking bribes. Then again, I
I
mean, a
love.
lot of his films did get through. I mean, obviously Jaws got through with its uncut A, but that was the fucking 70s and everything was a different time. Obviously, there's Jurassic Park's PG rating, but then again, I think they just did that to stop the parents lynching them. But it's just quite funny. But the main focus is just a juxtaposition between the 80s PGs and the 90s PGs, where like one point the American one is more lenient, and then the next point the British one is. And of course, we've got the Australian PG to talk about and everything, which still seems to be quite lenient by today's standards because Barbie got a PG in both Canada and Australia, but PG-13 America, 12A in Britain.
No, but it's true. Canada and Australia are the two countries I can think of where the PG still has quite a degree of relevance. Boy in the Heron was rated PG in both of those countries. I believe as well Ant-Man the Wasp, which is 12A PG-13, that was rated PG by the ACB, and I'm like, Well, at least they get it. At least they still kept the PG alive. And, I know we beg to differ on Barbie, but I stand by, you know, it's like Grease. It's like an old school sort of PG film with the sexual banter and maybe like a few shits and stuff like that. That makes me nostalgic in the weirdest way possible. Maybe I'm a little bit weird like that, but if
Yeah,
you
no,
look at it now, you look at PG movies and someone says, "Ah, shit," or "God damn son of a bitch." It sort of like throw you off a little bit. Like, wait, is this a family movie?
I was, well, like I say, I watched Devil Wears Prada for the first time a few weeks back and everything. And of course, while it is a very mild PG-13 rated film, it was a PG over here, even though it's 4 years after 12A when the PG started to lose its power. There's still quite a few uses of the word shit that I just think wouldn't pass in this day and age. So mind you, is a jury out on that one? It could be because I don't be because again, such a mild film and everything. Maybe not as mild as the 2005 Fantastic Four film, which don't understand how that, and the 2020 Bill and Ted film. Do not understand how why those films need to be rated PG-13, but
I have a theory on
that's not
that.
there. But I do understand why Spider-Man was rated PG. Just in case you're just in case you're listening, Doug Walker, you utter bellend. Although, why the fuck would he be listening to this?
Well, we're both British. No one cares about British podcasters. They always care about the American ones because they
Yeah,
have
bloody
more
zaps.
capital and sponsorship.
Well, that's that
Well,
is true. There is some. Oh, carry on. Actually,
I want to interject your thought a little bit on Fantastic Four and whatever that other film you were saying. I think it's
Bill and
a
Ted.
Bill and Ted Face
Devil-
the Music. Yeah, a lot of those is probably for demographic purposes. This idea that if it's PG, only kids will watch it is frankly the dumbest idea I've ever heard. There are so many great films, even recently, that are PG rated. You could take your grandparent, your parent, your university age person, the 30-year-old with
Spider-Verse.
his child, well, probably not that, but like Hidden Figures. That's a old school PG that they don't make anymore because it's not aimed at children. It's aimed at anyone,
I'm really
really.
surprised that one. I'm really surprised that was merely a PG. But obviously now I can see. Oh well, there's nothing in it that would require it. But it's like you just look at it. It's like that doesn't look like a PG rated film. You watch it. It's like okay, it fits in with a PG, but it just doesn't feel or look or give you the impression of one. It's really weird. Don't
No,
like
but
it.
I
I
even
like the film. I
have
don't
that
like it.
feeling a lot of times when I see trailers and marketing for certain films. Oppenheimer, even though it's not PG, I thought it was going to be PG-13 or 12A. I thought, oh, no problem. Rated
I heard that was going to
R.
be R.
I
No, I
thought,
heard it was going to be
whoa.
R.
And then even Barbie, I thought, oh, that's probably going to be PG because it looks like a kid's movie. I
I
didn't
heard
pick
that
up
was
on the
going to be.
whole beat you off thing. I just thought that was just wordplay. I didn't know it was some sort of masturbation joke.
Well, and of course, I personally felt that the sexual references in Barbie were probably a wee bit too strong for a PG. So I don't usually tell them to err on the side of caution, or if I do, it's caution about giving higher ratings. But this one is like, yeah, just put it in the 12A, give it the good old blockbuster rating. Don't give it the little kiddies rating.
Well,
And
even on the flip side, most children, they probably would enjoy it, but they probably wouldn't get a lot of the satire or political humor. You know, I was actually quite surprised that, people say, oh, it's woke. Not really. It's just very feminist. And I think that requires a level of adult understanding that a 6-year-old girl is probably not going to understand until turns into a teenager and starts reading a lot.
very, very probably.
I know,
Yeah.
sorry, I interjected or got off on a
No, go on.
tangent there, but I was just thinking in fairness, with PG as a whole, and I'm trying to think of films that are both PG in both countries, the ones that are strongest to me in recent years were like Paranorman, Monster House, well, Island Dogs, that was PG-13. I take that back. But Paranorman, and Monster House are two that come into mind where I thought, wow, that they pushed the envelope a little bit. Kind of like Roger Rabbit or Ants. They're not quite all the family films, but it's not so adult that's South Park or Fritz the Cat. It's weird.
Yeah,
It's some sort of weird middle ground. Have you seen Paranorman or Monster
mm,
House?
I've not seen either Monster House nor Paranorman. I don't know if that's something that would have really been on my radar.
Well, I'll put it this way: Monster House. I saw a few people coming out of the screening of that. I saw it in Brighton, and some of the kids were shaking, like they looked like they were terrified by that damn movie. And it is quite an intense film. There's loud screams coming from the house with the gnarly teeth and a lot of intense threat and peril. And it's got the humor in it. And it's animated, CG, but it is a bit unrelenting. And then Paranorman had the same issues, and also they had some adult jokes in it as well that I thought you probably wouldn't see that in a typical PG animation these days, unless it's like a ads or Roger Rabbit, like an old school Simpsons episode. So that's just my 2 cents. I know people complain about Coraline being too scary at PG, and I'm like, I guess you've never seen Return of Oz or Neverending Story or Black Cauldron. Go now, now.
But
Wash it
those are
down now.
Yeah, but those are like rather old school films. It's funny you bring up Ants, actually. Well, it's not funny, actually. Wow. It does me want to segue into a sort of point of reference I wanted to bring up, because Ants came out at the same time as Bug's Life did, as you may be very aware of.
I saw it at the cinema, both movies at Virgin Cinemas in Watford. Good
That's
times.
cool. Now, as you may be aware, Bug's Life was that both sides of the Atlantic, well, G in America, U in Britain, and Ants was a PG on both sides of the Atlantic. And you could just tell. Bug's Life was clearly the little kiddies film. Ants was aimed at a more mature audience. Okay, it came out in '98, so I was 13 at the time being, although I saw it when in '99 when I was 14 and everything. Didn't see Bug's Life. I saw Ants because I really wanted to see it. It looked like a really cool film. But you can imagine, like, an adolescent kid and everything, you know which one's going to appeal, don't you? And of course, the PG, and they knew exactly what the makers of the films knew what they were doing and who their target audience was. Again, and the ratings do show that. Bug's Life being a U/G, Ants being a PG, and of course, Ants is a more mature film. I don't know. I can't remember how much it actually pushes the boundary of it, but it's pretty obvious it's not. While it can appeal to kids, it's clearly got a more grown-up audience in mind.
Well, thankfully you made that point very clear. It is one of my all-time favorite movies, by the way, both Ants and Bugs Life. But when you revisit it, you're almost a little bit surprised of there's quite a bit of swearing in that one, and there was also some cartoon violence and gore that was like, oh. There was even the word "What are you bitching about?" that was said by Sly Stallone's insect character. There was a scene where Danny Glover's ant character, Barbados, I think, he's decapitated, but he still talks to Zed in the war fields, and there's a lot of dead bodies and stuff. And when I saw that film, I did think that was a little bit gruesome, a bit unusual, but it was the swearing that sort of caught me a little bit by surprise. My mother probably didn't like I was hearing these kind of words in the
Well,
film. Same with Men in
what's a,
Black. Quite a lot of
to be
swearing.
honest,
She was a bit concerned.
yeah. Well, Mark, I mean, that is the risk you take when you take your little kid, because you'd have been, well, if it was 1999, you'd have been 6. If it was '98, you'd have been 5. You run the risk when you take a kid that age to see a film that's rated anything higher than U or G. I'm sorry, you just do. Okay.
Well, I mean, I had a strong stomach for stuff, anything that was above PG probably wasn't allowed. I mean, I did get to sneak in the Wild Wild West, and I saw the first Rush Hour and Nutty Professor 1 and 2 on television, but I never really pushed the envelope until like 2002, 2001, when I got to see more 12s and stuff. But sorry, you were saying.
Actually, I don't know I can't remember where I was actually. I mean,
But yeah, that's what PG is there for. The triangle. on that
It used to
sexy
be.
black card. It meant
It used to.
something.
Yes, it used to mean shit like that. I mean, like I said, I told you about the time my dad took me. My first original film, but I remember seeing it at the cinema, was Memoirs of Invisible Man, and I would have been in primary school. I mean, it says 92, I would have been 7, but it might be taken of 93, so it might have been 8. I mean, I was in primary school when it came out, and while the film was cut for its PG, it only had the word fuck removed to get the PG. Everything else was left in. And my dad, I mean, I don't. Maybe my dad didn't expect it. I don't remember him complaining much about the level of bad language or sexual references or anything in the damn movie, which I don't think I picked up on, to be honest. But Christ. And of course, I mean, Jurassic Park, which I saw, I even same year following one anyway. I mean, there's not a huge amount of swearing in it or anything, but good grief, the film is violent and the film is scary. And yeah, it's been bumped up to a 12A now because it would have been a 12 back then if 12 wasn't restrictive. I mean, actually, where am I going with that? It's just, I mean, but then again, it is a risk. I mean, that you take. You take and see a film, it's a PG. It's not necessarily a kid's film, but of course, because 12A and PG-13 have become the go-to ratings for films like that. Okay, Jurassic Park was already PG-13, but as those have become such a mainstay with all your Marvel blockbusters and stuff, I mean, and your Transformers and your Godzilla type films and everything, and PG is just Frozen and Kung Fu Panda, and like the only thing you're going to get in a PG-rated film is you're probably going to hear the word crap once, and that's going to be about it, and that's just put in there to secure the PG rating, while everything else may as well be a U or G rating. I mean,
And that, my
times
friends, is
the
the
times
sad
they are
thing.
changing. No, the times they are changing. Genie's out of the bottle. I don't know if they really go back in.
No, but you're absolutely right there. I mean, even a more sad example, and this was even from the 80s, the Transformers movie, which had its re-release recently, slipped in the word shit, which I thought, you can't do that in a cartoon. Or parents complain, but they slipped it in simply because they wanted to get more show times. So it wasn't relegated to the sort of kids and family hour sessions in US cinemas. And they slipped in the word shit just to get it from PG to G. And I'm like, what?
From G to PG. Well, yeah. I mean, okay.
Yeah, I mean,
I mean
it's a
that
bit
is.
cynical, really. I'm not quite supportive of that process. If a
Oh,
film wants to make its
yeah,
point
but
across, it
dude,
makes its point across.
yeah, but I know, dude. It's just business, though. At the end of the day, if the film industry, the cinema industry, and the ratings board are going to play this monkey business, the directors have to dance to a tune that they're playing. So I mean, that's all. Yeah,
Well,
I don't like it any more than you do, but it's what's going to got to be done.
I'm not criticizing that because I already know that's the way. That's the way the cookie crumbles. At NC-17 and R, it's a hell of a lot worse than at the GPG level where it's sort of come see, come sa. But yes, it does make you wonder a little bit. I will have a question in mind regarding with PG. I know we already know what the strongest one is. Jaws. Nah, 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 nah. What is
Oh,
the
to be honest, though,
strongest? Go on.
is it the strongest PG though? I mean, in America, you had things like Temple of Doom or Beetlejuice or Gremlins or anything like Beastmaster or any of that. In Britain, we had Mission Impossible and Fellowship of the Ring. I mean, those were pretty strong. Flipping them. Sorry, these are pretty strong PGs. I mean, and I know they've been changed and everything, but still. But I mean, nonetheless, though, I mean, I probably interrupted your train of thought now.
No, no, but I'll agree with Fellowship of the Ring, although that one is not as graphic as Jaws, just in my opinion, 'cause there's not as much blood and gore. I've not seen Mission Impossible films, so I can't speak for that. But in recent years, what would you say is the strongest PG you've seen? Um, by recent, we usually mean like after 2003.
After 2003.
Yeah,
Um,
to present.
yeah, I know. Well, okay, in last 20 odd years. Okay, well, I can work that. Um, Yeah. I like something. I mean, I could say The Devil Wears Prada was pretty strong, but then again, that's a really mild one, so maybe no. There was that film, was it Darkest Hour? That Churchill biopic,
Oh, I
starring
remember when
Gary
that
Coleman.
came out. Is it because of the swearing, or he does the
But it's
victory sign when smoking?
but yeah, well, it is the naughty language. I mean, again, America's MPA gave it a PG-13, and it's like silly. But it's kind of hard to tell because PGs are so lightweight nowadays. You could say the Spider-Verse films, they're pretty well, not strong, but they're not weak PGs. They're not patronizingly pussyish PGs. Then again, Hidden Figures is a good one.
I get Spider-Verse. The first one, which is the only one I saw, there was quite a lot of what we would call sci-fi action violence that normally is a little. It's kind of very frequent, unrelenting, but typical of movies of that kind. And also because it's a superhero film, like The Incredibles. Most superhero films are 12A nowadays, so it was a bit surprised to see a non-12A, but also non-15 superhero movie. I felt that way about Incredibles, but at the U level, and Incredibles is a PG in America, the first ever Pixar PG, and I was like, the Americans got it right this time, because my goodness, that was pretty intense. I forgot another movie. Hold on the phone. Lion. It had Dev Patel, and he tries to uncover where his brother was that he lost in India. As it turns out, there's quite a horrible and disturbing scene of self-harm on the table. And I've even done it in real life, where Dev Patel's adopted brother punches his head multiple times out of anger and frustration, and he's escorted out of the table. And there's some implied child prostitution subplot that's not explicit, but it's implied
Messed
that
up.
he might be
That's kind of
groomed.
messed up.
I
Okay,
know
well, it's kind of messed up.
those two scenes actually put the film to like PG-13 for thematic elements and some sensuality. And I thought, oh, especially the self-harm scene, I can't even watch that because it's a bit triggering for me. As well as in The Artist, that's a great movie. It's French, completely silent, black and white. There's a scene where the man who looks like Clark Gable puts a gun through his mouth and tries to commit suicide, and it says bang, but nothing happens. It's ultimately stopped, but the intensity and the feeling that he is going to take himself out. Oh, that was quite unnerving. And you've got a PG-13 in America, but PG's fine. But oh, that is a bit upsetting if you've got a history of depression or suicidal thoughts.
Well, yeah, I mean, I get where you're going with that. Does sound a little bit intense considering what you expect of PG. Another film that just came to mind, I can't believe didn't think of it earlier, because you said since 2003. I'm guessing, I mean, what do you reckon about Spider-Man 2?
Strong, I'll put it that way, especially with that scene involving Dr. Octopus in the hospital. I know some people thought that scene was fucking terrifying. I thought it was funny and, oh, let's see all, him messing with the chainsaw and Octopus's claws. I mean, it's fine. It's like an old school type of PG, but I could see why nowadays it would just be really out of place. And that hospital scene was pretty intense. But
I know it was cut for its PG rating, but all they cut was a bloody headbutt. I mean,
well, that's nothing.
I know. I mean, and yeah, and it's but then they decided actually headbutt can stay in. It gets a PG, but it's like, well, hang on. Not only was this PG-13 in America, it's M in Australia. So I mean, makes you ask a few questions, doesn't it? It raises a question, is what I meant to say.
No, it does. But I guess because of the whole hullabaloo surrounding the first Spider-Man movie being 12 and doing the pilot projects and parents complaining that they couldn't take their kids to see it, it doesn't surprise me that they rated number 2 a PG just so they get the parents to not complain off their backs. These were
Yeah, but it's a big though, because
for Gen Z. These were early days. 12A was still kind of new. They didn't quite know how to fully unleash it. So you did have a few films at the 12A that were kind of adult, a bit rude, and a bit violent, like Cowboy Bebop or Without a Paddle and stuff. Sorry,
okay. No,
Van
that's cool. It's
Helsing.
cool, man. I still think that because after all the horror and hullabaloo about the first Spider-Man's 12 rating, they then changed 12 to 12A. This comes out 2 years later. You've got like the whole fucking 2 years to get used to the idea of 12A, and although to be fair, like you say, it was quite RN because again, like Cowboy Bebop, you said, and of course in 2003 with Terminator 3 as well, when R-rated America. Although fucking out, yeah, I've said my piece on that and everything. I don't think Terminator 3 warranted its R rating. I think its only reason it got the R rating, not less for the hand ramming scene and more for the free uses of the word fuck. But neither here nor there. It's getting off topic. But no, I mean, yeah, Spider-Man 2 was a very strong PG. And on the subject of Mr. Doug Walker again, he's reckons that unlike the first one, this one warranted its PG-13 rating. Good grief, Doug, you really are an absolute fucking twat. But then again, I don't want to judge.
Well, I don't think Channel Awesome or Doug, whatever his name is as bad as Nerdrotic or the Critical Drinker, who I keep hearing their
He's a
names
prick.
online, and he's like some sort of right-wing sexist MAGA guy. I'm like,
Yeah, I don't like. Yeah, he's a
shut
prick.
the
We don't.
fuck up. Sorry, not
Yeah,
you, but to
Yeah, I know. I don't watch his stuff because I don't want to give him traffic. Fuck that guy and fuck everyone who thinks like him.
exactly
Yeah, but
there.
that's neither here nor there.
But I even forgot a few others as well.
Well, fire on.
Turns out you don't have to even go to the 80s or the 90s. You remember that Oliver Twist film that creepy pedophile Roman Polanski did? Well, that was also a pretty nightmarish experience to watch in the cinema because of there's a scene where Sykes beats a woman to death, and there's, I think, implication that there's blood spilling out on the floor. They had to cut it for UK release because it was a bit too violent. And then scene where some two boys are fighting over like bread or something. That scene kind of unsettled me because I've been a victim and a perpetrator of bullying in schools, and just the whole general nature. And I think there's some hanging in it, like capital punishment. That was it was quite unnerving. You know, Charles Dickens is a celebrated author, but that movie's quite nightmarish, especially nightmarish because it's made by a well-known pedophile who fled America in the 70s to avoid being charged on statutory rape charges. Don't watch it.
Oh, no. No
And
intention of
then
watch it. I don't really watch a
Simpsons
lot of
movie was pretty strong, but I've already talked about Simpsons movie so much, so I'm not going to discuss that
Man,
one.
is it though? I mean, I suppose it's a bit stronger than that Golden Compass movie I talked about, which came out the same year. It was still like both PG, no PG-13 in America, so clearly the BBFC was still throwing PGs on, was still letting a bit go at PG. Oh, I don't want to repeat myself.
Well, a lot of
we
it
said
has
it
to
on
do
our
with
PG.
that skateboarding scene in Simpsons movie and underage drinking and the use of the middle finger that made me think,
That's true.
no, that's not
We get-
appropriate. And also, it's
Well,
creepy.
maybe.
I don't want to see naked children.
Yeah, it's not really what you call a naked child. I mean, I know it technically is, but I mean, considering the context how it's drawn, as presented, it's like, yeah, dude, you have to let that one. I think you gotta let that one go. I mean, I was talking about an example of like, remember how I mentioned the PG-13 podcast, how like the PG-13 ranged from Simpsons movie to Drag Me to Hell, and it's just like weird. But and while we're talking about ranges, I mean the PG in America's PG in the 80s, because I mentioned Beetlejuice or Beastmaster or Temple of Doom in its uncut form, and how that was like, but then it goes all the way down to shit like Honey, I Shrunk the Kids, which had a U rating here. So, well, yeah, a fair few PG films were rated 15 over here in the 80s. You also had the frickin' ones that were completely rated U over here, like Honey, I Shrunk the Kids or Black Cauldron or Actually, why not? Well, you have the Star Wars films, although those were a bit strong for a U rating, I have to admit. E.T. is another one, I think. It got worse in the 90s when you saw Space Jam and James and the Giant Peach and Iron Giant and Prince of Egypt and nope, that's all I've got right now. But of course nowadays we've got Paw Patrol and Wish and yeah, well, I don't want to ramble.
No, but it's true. I mean, especially for 90s millennials, Iron Giant and Prince of Egypt, Space Jam sort of coming to mind there. Iron Giant is a bit on the strong end for you, I will say, because of the
It's a
theme
PG
still
now.
with the Cold War. And I think there's some intense sci-fi violence toward the end, and even some swearing in it, which you probably wouldn't find in today's kids' movies. But then again,
Well,
Space Jam New Legacy had quite a bit of swearing, and that was a U.
yeah,
Oh,
that's another one. You're right
um,
about that.
Space Jam, that the first one particularly, that doesn't need to be PG stateside. It could have been a U anyways.
The
Some
only
people probably
thing,
freaked out about the transformation sequence of the Monstars, but that scene
that's
never
not the.
scared me.
Well, I don't think the only reason I can think it got PG stateside is because there was that one scene where they're at a basketball game and those little alien creatures are like in that trench coat and that fedora and that hat and everything. And I'm watching the game, and it's one of the women sitting next to her makes a very, very subtle and blinking you'll miss it suggestion that they might be masturbating under there. But it's like, dude, no kid's gonna pick up on that. Most adults might not even realize that's what they're on about and everything. You wouldn't even stick in your mind. I mean, yeah, it is bizarre that it was a PG rating, but then again, as we've said, they want to give these films PG ratings because it probably gets more traction than does a G.
Which like I said before, it's a bit sad really, because despite economics, some films don't really need it. You don't have to exactly prove yourself with a higher rating just because it seems more cool, unless it calls for it. I know I'm a little contradictory on that because I always like to assume everything should be an 18 these days, but on the lower end, you don't have to rate everything PG just because it feels like you can get the older people to go see that. I think that's kind of stupid logic. For Space Jam and toys. What what am I trying to think of here? Like Lorax, for instance, they gave it PG stateside because of brief, mild language, and I'm like, really? I mean, it's. But then again, sorry, I might be a little bit lost for thoughts because there's so many films that I've seen over the years, and I do have to wonder, that sort of slipped by the cracks, or they probably were just a bit too zealous on it. I know when I speak of the two PG films that I grew up on, that are my favorites, Toy Story and Small Soldiers. It couldn't be any different. I mean, one's G, one's PG-13. Although I will have to beg this question, because you were a teenager when you saw Small Soldiers.
I
Did that
didn't say
film
that.
ever sort of
No,
scare you?
Mark,
Because it didn't for me. I thought it was
Mark,
badass.
Mark. I didn't see Small
Yes.
Soldiers at cinema.
Oh, my
I
bad.
don't know if I gave you the impression I did, but I didn't. I saw it probably a few years afterwards when it came out when it was aired on TV. I never went to see it at the cinema. I don't know if I ever wanted to see it at the cinema, but it must have passed me by. In fact, in 1998, because that's when it came out, the Godzilla film I think was the only film I saw at the cinema. Which, God, that is not a good average. Well, I mean, I don't.
No.
I mean, because that film is shit.
Well, I did like the soundtrack of it, but
Oh,
I do
soundtrack
remember
slaps.
a weird memory in my head, and I could be wrong on this, that the movie may have been a little bit too intense or scary for me, so I don't really remember it that much, or I was taken out of it a little earlier. I'm a bit ashamed to say this because I'm the person who saw stuff like Men in Black and Edward Scissorhands and The Mask growing up, and I hold those movies in the high regards. I saw those films at the same time as I saw Godzilla, so please do laugh at me for thinking the Godzilla film from '98 or '97 was too scary for my young ass.
Oh, I will. Don't get me wrong. I will laugh at you all the time, Mark, non-stop. But
And even in
before
the movie Ants, the mantis that sort of encroaches up and sort of tries to threaten Princess Bola somehow freaked me out, as was the mechanical bird on A Bug's Life. That's some weird phobias. I don't have
yes,
them
Mark.
anymore.
But to be honest, Mark, I think weird is a very too mild a word to describe you, but I don't want to get hung up on that. You did mention The Mask, and I've told you, if I saw that at the cinema, yeah, that's a very strong PG. And obviously, I mean, it was PG-13 in America. Clearly, it's only a matter of time before that gets bumped up to 12A because it's just where it belongs. But flipping heck, it does just boggle my mind, though, looking back at it, like 1994 when I was 9. I could see that, but I couldn't see Ace Ventura or Dumb and Dumber. It's just so fucking weird. The BBFC weren't making any sense. And obviously, all three of those films should just be slapped with 12A rating and have done with it, because that's clearly where they belong. I mean, hell, The Mask is anything worse than those two because it's so damn violent.
And it's worse than Mrs. Doubtfire. I mean, most people sort of remember that cunning linguist joke in the dinner table, which, it's a bit crude, but I don't think kids are going to pick up on the overt sexual banter, like compared to Mask, which has those gangland violence scenes with being threatened by a golf ball and the shootouts at the Copacabana Club. Which,
Exactly.
yes.
My point exactly.
My mother was a bit concerned that the film had a bit too much violence and some sexual stuff at the time I saw it, but she let it slip by because I was more focused on Jim Carrey doing his crazy antics and being like a Tex Avery cartoon come to life. So that's how I got to see it on BBC 1 or 2, and I taped it on the telly back in 97, 98. So that's one of my fondest memories of that great PG-13, PG-rated classic. But yes, it does make you wonder a little bit. She even had a little bit of a concern with Edward Scissorhands, because there was that scene with the ginger lady who, yes, I know, was flirting with Edward in the salon, and she was getting like a sort of haircut, and she, her feet were curling up, which probably she had the red hair, and then she got like a sort of orgasm from having her hair cut by Edward, and then the violence at the end, which they did trim to avoid a 12, that was quite intense, and him smacking Winona Ryder. I was like, I'm surprised I got away with seeing the kind of films I did, pre-2000.
Well, there's truth in that. I mean, there is truth in that. Of course, I find the whole
I'm sorry you had to hear my graphic details about my.
It's not. Don't worry, Mark. We can always discuss that later with your therapist. But the case of Mrs. Doubtfire, exactly in '93. So it's just weird that, of course. I mean, I didn't try to go to see it anyway, but it's a bit weird that I wouldn't be allowed to see that when I was 8. Oh, but I can go see the film where a T-Rex eats a guy off a toilet and another Velociraptor just, eats another guy where he screams in pain and everything. Yeah, I can see that at age 8, but the family-friendly comedy where a guy dresses up like an old woman, no, can't see that.
Yeah, that one still makes me scratch my head a bit. Because it's been a long time since I've seen Doubtfire, but sometimes when you're young, you don't pick up on verbal banter or innuendo like you would when you're an adult, and certain things I probably could slip by the cracks a bit, as long as it's not too overt. I mean, I've seen even some PG films a little bit more overt with some of its sexual humor and content. I think there was that scene in The Mask where Jim Carrey pulls out a condom. This certainly slipped by my head. That one's probably a little bit more overt than hearing someone say.
That slipped by my head. When I was,
it was like, sorry, wrong pocket.
Well, again, it's passed me by when I was saw it at age 9 in the cinema. In fact, I passed me by a few times when I saw it later, all the time when I was older. I was watching it on video, but then again, I think that's just why you think, oh Christ, no kid's going to pick up on that. It's so blink and you'll miss it. You let it go.
No, but you're exactly making the point. There is in many ways, even The Mask is milder than Drop Dead Fred. I know that's probably going to get a few alarm bells. But I speak on that because you're a Rick Mile fan. I have a crush on Phoebe
Yeah.
Cates, and I reviewed the filmmaker, and that mostly just given a 12 because of some language.
Well, it was a 12. It was a 12 in its original release. It's just that it was bumped up to a 15 on video, just because 12 wasn't available on video at the time being.
And I'm sure many kids would have. Sorry. I'm sure many kids would have wanted to see Drop Dead Fred because, when you were growing up, you watched Bottom. You're probably thinking like, although, Bottom is a bit more adult than Fred, but that's another story.
Well, yeah, that is true. And of course, Drop Dead Fred is a much more Americanized type of film, which of course Rick Mel didn't have any creative input to, whereas Bottom was a very British production, completely written by Rick and Aid, which is why it's just so awesome. But that's again neither here nor there.
No, but it's sort of nostalgia porn for us. We're talking about all these movies we saw when we were growing up and trying to own it to the Gen Z people, saying, see, we had it better than you guys. I know I shouldn't be doing that because that's pitting groups against one another, but I kind of thrive on that because unlike you, I have insecurities about my age. I'm not going to tell how old I am.
But, well, I know how old you are anyway, and you've mentioned it so many times. I mean, but carry on.
I look at Gen X and early millennials from the 80s and stuff with envy as to why they got to experience so much cool shit. Even more hardcore PG films, porn magazines, Atari video games in the first PlayStation. They actually owned it. I didn't own it. I owned PS2 and Game Boy Advance.
Dude, it's very easy to look back at these it's very easy to look back at this stuff from rose-tinted glasses when you weren't there to fucking experience it. So they say, oh, you grew up with all the cool shit in the 80s and 90s and everything.
And pre-9/11.
Yeah,
shit.
okay, I'm not quite...
And European Union.
Mark, I'm not quite... Can
I'll
I please
stop.
Continue? Right. It's very easy to say you
Yes.
grew up with this cool shit in the 80s and 90s. Again, I'm not old enough to remember the 80s, really, but I grew up with these. Of course, you're missing out on all the shit that happened. I mean, you didn't experience the Thatcherism. You didn't experience the Section 28. You didn't experience the video nasties bullshit. You didn't experience the Teenage Mutant Hero Turtle shit we had to put up with. Just having Mary Whitehouse and James Furman around. You didn't experience any of that. So you say you envy the older generations. I envy the younger generations for never having to put up that bollocks.
Well, that is a plus. I will give it that because I grew up under John Major, who was a little bit more centrist, but still a neoliberal hack. Like
you were
Blair, Thatcher and all them.
Mark, you were 4 years old when Major was booted out. There's no way you remember him, okay? You grew up under Blair, mate. And for all Tony Blair's problems, he was an example of cooler heads coming to the fray and all that pearl-clutching moral guardianism of the Tories of the 80s and early 90s disappearing. And James Furman fucking off from the BBFC helped as well. Count your blessings, mate. I had to grow up under the cuntishness of John Major. It is not something I miss. And as for Tom, well, I'd say, well, okay, yeah, he is grown up in a post-Brexit era, so not that great, but at least he didn't put up that bullshit.
I'll end my political diatribe from here. I think that may got off tangent. Also, may have been some sort of guilt trip on my end, but it all ties into PG now, PG then. Take that as you will. As far as what I was saying earlier on about it being my favorite rating, I still stand by that, even though many films I see nowadays are typically 15 or rated R. I don't really see a lot of kids movies these days. I'm ashamed to say.
Well, you're a grown
Um,
up. You would.
well, I've seen Chicken Run Dawn of the Nugget, which was PG, but it didn't really need it. It could have been a U,
Oh
just
God.
like the original.
Yeah, you're right. Absolutely right. Oh, I just remembered another PG rated film. That's well, it's PG here. It wasn't PG in America. The Plague Dogs.
Oh, how about showing children signs? No, I'm sorry, scenes of people's faces being shot off, and there's blood everywhere by a dog by accident, and someone falling to their death, and you see like a bloody dead body carcass, and implications of animal experimentation and abuse and incineration. Take that as you will for a PG or an A certificate film from the good old days, and you're probably going to be left traumatized. I know you're a pet. I know you have a pet, but it's a cat. But even, because you don't have dogs, that movie probably made you cry or probably scared the
I've never.
death out of you.
Uh, again. Oh God. You're not gonna like this, but well, you might like this, or you're probably gonna love it actually. I haven't seen it.
At the PG level, animation wise, along with Princess Mononoke and Simpsons movie, one of the strongest PG films I have ever seen. Animation wise, I could have gone on about Princess Mononoke, but I've already talked about that one for a
I
lot. But as
I
far as
get it.
nightmares, and sort of sexual awakenings, PG has a weird way of showing those both things, and I think that's one of the reasons why I love the PG rating a lot, is because at least back then you could fuck your own mind up a little bit of it or make you horny, and certain movies did that. I know particularly with adverts. This is on the horror level because I used to go to the cinema a lot, and in 2004 onwards, they started putting PGs on cinema adverts, and some of those ones I remember seeing were quite unnerving. I think there was like a panther sort of scowling around, and it was for like a fragrance called Dior, Pure Poison, and it looked like he was barking or hissing at me, that evil panther, and that advert scared me when I saw it in the cinema when I was watching Hero, which was a 12A, and then it was, I think, the Terminal. There was an ad that shown some alien snake-eyed monsters driving Peugeot 206 hatchbacks, and that was PG rated, and I think mainly because of that horror shock element, and that gave me nightmares. So anyone who thinks that it's only Da Vinci Code or Elfen Lied that gave me nightmares, actually many adverts did just that, as well as the stuff from like Think and Department for Transport with people being hit by cars because they drove faster than 30 miles per hour.
Well, I mean that's okay. I don't really have much to say about that, to be honest, Mark. I mean, I'll let the audience reflect on that, but I don't really have much to re- add to that conversation. I don't really discussing adverts, but I hope you recovered. We did mention Mission Impossible earlier. Have you seen that film, the first Mission Impossible from 1996?
I've never seen any of them, but I know you
Because
said
that
it's a
is
strong PG.
very strong. It's not just PG-13 in America; it's M in Australia.
Just like Men in Black.
Well, yeah, but the difference is though, Men in Black was cut here, whereas not cut. Whereas like Mission Impossible was not. It was a completely uncut PG.
Oh, blimey. Is it
No,
due to the scene with the elevator where the man's face gets caught up in the elevator? I
well,
think
that's
there's
one
some sort of
reason.
impalings.
That's one reason. Yeah. I mean, that is probably the most egregious reason. Yeah, but there's a later on where one of them, another character, is who it turns out to be a vision or a dream or some the main character's having. But a guy walks through the door like basically with blood all over his hands and everything, and just it's like it's not just like a bit of blood. It's his hands are very just soft, red, wet and red with blood and everything. It's like, and it's not that long, I guess, but like bloody hell, it's more than my 11-year-old mind expected to see at a PG-rated film. It is. It did boggle my fucking mind how at 11 I was allowed to see that but I technically wasn't allowed to see Independence Day. I mean, I did see Independence Day because they just thought I was 12 and I went, and they didn't ask any questions because, nudge, nudge, wink, wink, plausible deniability, ironically. Don't ask, don't tell, as I was saying. But, you see, have you seen Independence Day?
Weirdly enough, I haven't. They
Well,
both
if you
got
see,
Will Smith, Men in Black,
well,
and Independence Day.
yeah, okay, well, if you ever do, you may get to realize, like, obviously nowadays I can understand it be a 12A rated, but back in 1996, like, I do not understand why this has a higher rating than Mission Impossible or The Mask or Jurassic Park. And those are PG-rated films, which I saw, which were violent. I mean, I suppose there's more swearing in, like, Independence Day, but Jesus, that's a bollocks reason for it. I mean, I suppose there is a reference to aliens abusing the guy sexually, but no, that's just stupid. I don't know. I guess the BBFC just didn't think enough kids really wanted to see Independence Day to actually see it. But, well, why did kids really want to go see Mission Impossible? I mean, I suppose it was marketed as an action movie, even though it really isn't. It's more of a suspense film. But anyway,
No,
no,
but
freaking
you're
hell.
making a very good point there. I mean, on a demographics level, Mission Impossible appeals to perhaps more older people because people remember the TV series. Independence Day has got the sci-fi and stuff, which is certainly going to be more appealing. It's more contemporary than MI1 is ever going to be. So you are right on some level. Like, some of the logic going on is a little strange. They even tried doing that with Batman Forever. It
That was
got a
heavily
12
cut.
originally, but they cut quite a bit of its PG, which I guess because it's a superhero film. But they didn't do that with the first Batman.
Yeah, but it's a more kid. It's meant to be the more kid-friendly one, though. That's why I can understand what's going on there after the hoo-ha surrounding Batman Returns and everything, which had to be cut for its 12. But that's getting out there. I mean, they obviously wanted a more kid-friendly Batman, so that's why they went for a PG. Tried to go for a PG over here with Batman Forever, and it was heavily cut for it. Whereas Batman and Robin got the uncut PG, and it's still PG-13 in America, so fuck me. But I was asking, we were having a sort of wonder, basically, which of these three films is next to be upgraded to freaking 12A? Would it be Arachnophobia, The Mask, or Mission Impossible? And it's because each of those three really do belong in the 12A rating, but Mission Impossible really fucking belongs in it. I am surprised it has not been upgraded yet. Maybe they're waiting for a 30th anniversary re-release, but The Mask has had it. Fuck it, I don't know. I'm rambling again, but I mean, Mission Impossible is one of the strongest films to have a PG rating I've ever seen. Stronger than Jurassic Park, stronger than The Mask in terms of visual violence. And I think the appeal to kids of the film was a lot less fair because me and my mate were watching at age 11. We did not have a fucking clue what was going on because the plot is so convoluted. But again, I digress.
I felt that way when I saw Galaxy Quest, which is it's an old school PG. It's fun, but I was like, what's with all the Star Trek references? I didn't get the movie at all. The thing I thought was funny was Tim Allen because he voiced Buzz on Toy Story. But Mission Impossible, I can only imagine what that experience probably was like, and I'm sure Rob Bavister, with a head full of blonde hair, probably may have been like shaking or shivering during the elevator scene, I presume. I've seen the clips of it online, so that's probably why I know what I know.
Well,
I don't know if that ever happened to you.
Well, I wasn't shaking or shivering, but I was a little jarred by it and everything. But to be honest, I mean, most of the horrible stuff happens in the first act, and as a film progresses, it's more just rather not boring to me now because I can follow the intrigue. But back with a kid, I just want to see gunfights and explosions, and I didn't get much of that, and I was a bit miffed. And all I had was just lots of talking and then plotting. But yeah, that's neither here nor there. You bring up Galaxy Quest. That was funny because that's been upgraded to a 12A recently. It was originally a PG on both sides of the Atlantic, but it's just so funny. I'm going to reference that scene. I hope you know what I'm talking about. It's like, well, screw that. It's like, that's not what she said. That is not what Sigourney Weaver said in that scene.
No. Well, fuck that.
Of course, that's now why it's a 12, because they know she said fuck. But it's like, yeah, but she dubbed it over with screw to get the PG. It's like, to upgrade that to a 12 is kind of missed the point. But but then again, I don't want to be too particularly. But I don't want to be too particularly
No, but you make
heavy moaning about it. But I make a good point, do I?
you do, because I know it seems quite conservative on everything, but when it comes to mouthed language or swearing, I usually am on the side of pass. If someone appears like they're saying fuck, but they're actually saying another word, I usually don't want to rate it so highly. So it's got a lot of swearing, so it's a PG, but it'd be like a strong PG nonetheless. Then that's on that level. That's the most I can tell you there, because when I first saw it in the cinema, I was, the whole family came along. I didn't get one single joke in it because it was all about Star Trek, and I was like, what is this all about? And I feel that way about Star Wars, but Star Trek is even beyond me.
I don't watch
Now,
I don't really like Star Trek either. I mean, I got some of the jokes because all the jokes at Trekkies, but I didn't. But I enjoyed the film. I found it quite funny and everything. If only because of Alan Rickman's performance, which is great.
well, you can't go wrong with him. Actually, that reminds me of another film that has a sort of sci-fi comedy angle. But Evolution. I know that word scares Americans because they think that God created man, but I remember seeing it was PG. Quite a bit of swearing, but not only that, but we had a lot of jokes that involved anal humor, sort of alien things coming someone's out of enema or someone's ass. I don't even know if you can get away with showing at the PG level sort of crude shots of people's anuses or enemas, like an enema stuck up someone's alien's anus or something, but they actually did show it, and that's in the end of the movie. They try to save the town, and they put something up an alien's arsehole.
I have seen the film. I haven't seen it so damn long though, and everything. I keep forgetting a bit. The bit I remember most in that damn film is them basically driving along the car, singing along to play that funky music after they've killed that one alien. It's just, I think it's quite entertaining and funny.
And I guess there's quite a bit of humor in that. It's kind of same people have done Ghostbusters and Twins, which are PG films that probably wouldn't be PG nowadays. I know people still make a bone to pick about the all sex joke from the first Ghostbusters. I had never seen Ghostbusters as a child. I saw it I was like 26 or something. I just didn't connect with it because I'm not Gen X.
Well, I mean, I grew up watching Ghostbusters quite a fair bit. It's a great fun film, and yeah, I suppose it has been upgraded to a 12A, but it does kind of fall into that sort of category. I mean, hell, the 2016 Ghostbusters film, well, all the other ones following it are all 12A now, PG-13, and they're all freaking much tamer, if you ask me. So that's
I would say so too. I didn't notice as much swearing or sex humor like there was on the first one, and coincidentally, all recent Ghostbusters movies have all been PG in Australia, coincidentally, which I guess is sort of. There's probably a lot of Gen X people working at the ACB, and they're probably thinking, well, this reminds me when I used to watch it when I was a child or when I was a bloody old teenager. So we'll just rate it a little lower because it reminds me of when I used to see when I was growing up. I know Australian accents, but we take it for what we will.
well, yeah. Sorry, what was the other? You mentioned Ghostbusters. What was the other film you mentioned?
Twins.
Twins,
Schwarzenegger
yes.
and DeVito.
I
think that's hilarious.
That's that is an old school PG. That's a I love that film. It is yeah, that is because there is a lot of risque stuff in that. Did I get a PG stateside? It probably did. Just to find out. And yeah, PG in both. Yeah, trifecta. Oh, quadrifecta. PG in America, Britain, Australia, and Canada. Or most Canadian regions, anyway. But I mean, there's certainly enough violence with like how with all the fights that are happening and everything, and the shooting, which is well, even the killing and everything, which is bloody hell. You wouldn't get away with that at PG nowadays. At least I don't think you would. Then of course there's good grief. There's a lot of swearing in it. I mean, how many times is the word shit mentioned?
More than
Quite
you can
ridiculous.
count, but probably not as much as the Fletch movie from the 80s, which I saw fairly recently. And I thought there's quite a bit of swearing, but not only that, but there's a lot of drug humor, references to heroin and drug dealing and stuff, which I definitely don't expect to see in a PG type movie. The last time I saw sort of drug content or references in a PG film was the Simpsons movie, which shockingly has a scene where Otto smokes cannabis. You never see that at PG. Even at 12, it can be a little rare. And then
Well, they've only just loosened up on that now, like with the Bob Marley film.
exactly my point. And then Leave No
Holy
Trace,
shit,
which was an
Fletch,
indie drama.
dude, Fletch was M in Australia and 14A in Ontario and Canada anyway.
Oh, well, that certainly proves my point. It was a little bit more adult than most people would have imagined. But, when people think of old school PG films, they think of Fletch with Chevy Chase or Spies Like Us, which is another one that Gen Xers, maybe late baby boomers, seem to be gaga about. I know I'm talking about generations as if they're like a monolith or something, but I assume those are films that my parents saw, or my older friends, or like 40 something or whatnot. I know Rob is going to be almost 40, at least next year or the year after that.
No,
So
no, next year.
are you frightened, or are you scared that you're going to be the
Terrified.
big 40?
Yeah, kinda, because it's like, oh shit, where did the time go? And of course, not only am I no longer young, I'm also getting past my physical prime as well. But there's not much I can really do about it. I just have to try and see what I can do to just got to deal with
Oh,
it. Really, I've just suddenly Oh wait, dude, I just suddenly had a thought actually. You mentioned earlier the last strongest PG in the last 20 years, right?
yep.
Have you seen the 2016 Jungle Book remake?
No, I'm afraid not. I don't like Disney remakes, but I am aware
Well,
that they were requesting a 12A or to avoid a 12A, but then they got the PG mainly because of fantasy threat, like lions mauling at.
uh,
Um,
well, there's one. I mean, yeah, it's PG on both sides of the Atlantic, and yeah, both sides of the equator and everything as well. I mean, so yeah, I mean, and of course you hear a PG film and everything, and of course we think nowadays, one of the past 10, 20 years, it's like just gonna be just like Frozen. It's all little bitch stuff now and everything, and then you suddenly there's this one scene where not to give too much away, but Shere Khan kills Akela, the head of a wolf and everything, and it's done. It's quite, and it is a really shocking scene and everything. And then you always forget is because it's live action or technically live action, you're automatically thinking of the 12A/PG-13 film and everything. So you see, oh well, that rolls into it quite nicely. But then you just remember, no wait, this is PG. Oh shit, this is like an old school PG. This ain't your Frozen era PG. This is fucking hell. You remind yourself, what the PG isn't completely neutered. It's not completely little wussy rating now. You can still do something cool in it. You don't think it, but it reminds you occasionally. It's parental guidance for a reason, and it's like you can get away with just a bit in there.
well, that's what I live for. I always like going to the cinema to at least see a type of movie that would push the envelope a little bit at the PG level, well, actually any level really these days. But you just reminded me, because I haven't seen Jungle Book. I've only seen the animation. Look out for those bare necessities. You're familiar with Walter Mitty? That was another one I sort of forgot about earlier on, and that had not only the word dick, I think there was a shit, a reference to teenage sex or pregnancies, and a scene where it looks like with X-ray scan, like you see at airports when you pass through security. He headbutts someone and tries to kick them in the shin, and that was like, and it wasn't really marketed as a kids film, but it somehow got the PG certificate and PG in the US, and I was like, finally, an old school PG movie that appeals not to children. We need more of those nowadays.
What was the name of the film again?
The Secret Life of Walter Mitty. It had Ben
Can you hear me
Stiller.
type? Can you hear me typing?
No.
Oh, never mind. Well, it doesn't matter. Anyway, I'm just looking it up on Fucking hell, I got terrible gas. Looking it up on IMDb. So let's have a gander. Oh, PG. Oh, Christ. PG. Both sides of Atlantic and both sides of the equator. And it's got the trifecta. Yeah, even a PG in Alberta and Canada, but mostly a G in the rest of them. But oh, bloody hell! And of course, you say it's oh, horny strip club. Diddly do. Shit has said once. Dick has said once, and it's oh shit. Hell, kick
And
ass.
it's an erection
Jesus.
joke.
Oh yeah, Walter misinterprets the word eruption for erection. Well, it goes to show that you can. It's not. I mean, again, it's not Jaws or anything like that, but or Raiders of the Lost Ark. But I'll take it.
Well, it made me giddy when I saw it, because I wanted to see that because it looked like an old school PG film that wasn't for children, like The Truman Show. I could have talked about that one. I almost forgot about Truman Show. And because
Oh, yeah, no.
I didn't want to see Wolf on Wall Street because I heard it was 3 hours long, and I thought, oh,
There's a
fucking
bit.
hell. I hate that
There's a bit
movie.
lengthy.
Even though it is quite graphic in the drugs and the sex and stuff, but I saw Walter Mitty instead at that time. But
Fair enough.
Truman Show, I know, you probably wouldn't hear the many uses of the word shit nowadays, but it's fine at PG. It's actually exemplary of what the PG rating should be. It's not really a kids movie, but I'm sure some kids who are a bit more highbrow could enjoy the Truman Show as well. They could enjoy a movie called Simone, which is from the same writer. I don't know if you've heard of it, but if you've ever seen the DVD cover for Simone, you would assume this was a 15 movie because it shows a naked woman with covering her breasts. It's kind of erotic,
How
but
do you spell it?
well, it's in computer code S1M0NE.
Found it.
Yeah, that the title
Uh,
Simone UK DVD on Google Images, and you'll be like, that doesn't look like a
PG.
PG film, but it is a PG
PG-13.
movie.
Yeah,
Yeah,
PG-13 America.
it's got like a woman covering her breasts or something, or it's a little bit, the artwork's provocative, and I'm like, that caught me a little by surprise because usually when you think PG films, they're always like safe. They play it safe. But I don't know. That's just from my perspective. I even had a DVD of Cromartie High School, which is a Japanese cartoon, and on the back of the cover it says LSD or dumbasses, and I'm like, usually PG works play it safe, but they actually just put a drug reference and a swear word on the back of the DVD cover, just like with Simpsons. They put the word sex on the VHS cover, and it said like Sex Lies and The Simpsons, which is a piss take at Sex Lies and The Simpsons. Do you remember though?
I don't think I may ring a bell. I can't quite remember.
I was like, maybe my mother was a little bit cautious about me getting that particular one because of the word sex in the title, which is not something you associate with PG works. Something with that sort of risque, but Simpsons, which used to be PG back in the good old days, Heaven and Hell. I remember that VHS tape very fondly. One of the episodes makes me cry. It was the itchy and scratchy stuff, that was quite violent. And then there was a scene where Mr. Burns, he's stabbed with a stake because he's like Dracula or something, and he's like, "Ah, ah," and then shivers, and he gets up and says, "You're fired, Joe." And yeah, That actually I think one of the bits scared me because it had the loud scream from Treehouse of Horror where she's like, "Ah!" In the same way that Matilda scared me, which I saw at Kids Club in 2000. I don't know if you've seen the Matilda movie from the
I've seen it once.
90s.
Yeah, I've seen it. I've seen it.
That movie was nightmarish, I'll tell you that. Especially the headmistress, Trunchbull, that's depicted. She's like violent and abusive towards children, and she's like screaming and yelling. It unnerved me a bit. And I don't say that about a lot of PG works. Well, nowadays I actually do, because I've already confessed to you about how I was scared by a little mantis thing from ants. I'm weird, aren't I?
A little
Well,
bit, yeah. But
even, jellyfish, you can show that in a U film. Finding Nemo never scared me, but the Hulk movie from 2003 did, and that had jellyfish in it. God help me.
well, yeah. But I mean, I don't. Again, I haven't got much to add to all this and everything.
Well,
I think.
I've already said my piece. I don't know if you have any
Yeah.
closing thoughts regarding parental
Uh,
guidance.
well, I mean, well, I'm trying to think. And also, I don't know if you heard about that film Robot Dreams, which has been released recently, which has been cut for a PG. Apparently, a rude gesture was removed. Don't know. Anyway,
My
well, I wouldn't
my
mind seeing it.
friend Joseph Ingham, he saw it at his cinema where he gets his student discounts. You are correct about them cutting the middle finger gesture, and I'm like, well, didn't the Simpsons movie have the two middle finger gestures? And that was PG, which should have been 12A. I'm like, okay,
Who
we'll
knows?
let that
I
one
mean,
slip.
well, I guess you're right. I don't. Well, it is what it is. I guess they changed their change their attitudes a little bit. I mean, we could talk about the strengths and weaknesses of PG the Cows Come Home. I mean, there's a lot of Ghibli stuff. I mean, was it Nausicaa and the Valley of the Wind was PG in America, but you've got both Princess Mononoke and was it The Wind Rises, which are both PG-13 American and PG here. The latter is probably BBFC were right, but the former the MPAA were right.
Well, I know with Wind
I mean,
Rises,
it is
well,
sad. Well, what'd you say?
I know with Wind Rises, it's fine at PG. The only reason why they gave it a higher rating stateside is because it showed a woman coughing up blood, which,
Well, yeah, that's what I was. Yeah, that was a weird reason to give it a PG-13, but oh, they love their PG-13s in America. I don't know what to tell you. So it is sad that the PG is not what it used to be, and to the point it's almost become meaningless. That they may as well just do away with the damn rating and just encapsulate everything that's PG in a U or a G rating if they're going to basically just do what it can with it, and just if it's anything that's a higher PG might as well just be PG-13 or 12A the way everything's going. I mean, it is sad, but I mean it's what it is. I mean,
no, but no, it is though. I mean,
would
I'm
you?
just like you, I'm nostalgic.
Yeah, I know, but nostalgia is a harsh mistress and everything. I mean, when I see a film getting downgraded for from one rating to another, I don't see that as I don't never see that as a bad thing, because as far as I'm concerned, that's just a sign of that we're actually progressing. Is like, ooh, we've come a long way. Especially when a 18 gets downgraded to a 15, it's like, thank you, BBFC, you've become more reasonable. But what would you say is the strongest PG you've seen, and what would you say is the weakest one you've seen, or at least the strongest PG you can think of and the weakest PG you can think of?
Jaws, as far as strongest ones are concerned, I don't really have to elaborate on that one. And then weakest, It's easy to say Toy Story, because of the use
I
of
mean,
fireworks and stuff, but I'm gonna say probably Frozen.
that's fair enough. I mean,
Just
that's
throwing it
that's
out there.
Jaws and Frozen are two examples of both sides of the Atlantic and everything. I mean, I could be snarky and say weakest PG in the UK is probably Mr. Bean's Holiday or Toy Story. Weakest PG in America is, well, for all I've seen, could be something like Space Jam or Prince of Egypt. Or if I'd seen Paw Patrol, probably that. Or hell, even Honey, I Shrunk the Kids is pretty. Actually, no, wait, there's got some pretty horrible scenes. Strongest PG on either side of it, either side of Atlantic. Like I say, Beastmaster is strong, and Beetlejuice is very strong, and is Temple of Doom and its own, Gremlins. And on this side of Atlantic, it's either going to be freaking Mission Impossible or Fellowship of the Ring. I know Fellowship of the Ring is now at 12A, but when it first came out, uncut PG, so that is really saying something.
Well, can I bring up Gremlins a little bit on this one? Because if you look at the two films, that one and the second Gremlins one, the new batch, it couldn't be any more different. I saw Gremlins 2 about a few months ago. I had a blast. I thought it was better than the first film, but it actually was much milder. And it got a 12 in the cinema, and they had to bump it to 15 because of the law, pre-94, where you had to put 12s to 15s. And I was like wondering if, for a second, with Gremlins 2, why is it so childish? I put Looney Tunes references and stuff, and like it was perhaps just as bad, if not mild, than Small Soldiers. And Small Soldiers was a PG film, which I could.
PG-13 in America, though.
Oh yes, well they all, Gremlins 2 and Small Soldiers have the same rating, but that goes to show the irony. On Gremlins, it's probably the strongest one out of the bunch there. And then Beetlejuice, for anyone who doesn't already know already, it is the first 15 certificate film I ever saw, just in case anyone asks, but we're not doing 15 or R-rated films, so we'll pass on that. But yeah, those are your closing thoughts, I presume.
Yeah, I guess. I mean, I haven't really got a huge amount else to add to it, so I mean, I can't really talk too much to it.
I will ask you this. What is your favorite rating of all time? I would presume on a gamble it's probably 18, because that's, the big boy movies watch. There's more violence.
I don't know what my favorite rating
It's
could
still
be. To be
PG.
like I say, Mark, I was going to say, I don't know what my favorite rating could be. I mean, do I really have one? I do like the 12A quite so much because it's this nice little catch-all and everything, nice little mean swap, which gives us a nice little equivalent to America's PG-13, and it's always interesting to see how the two, as I'm saying, it is meant to be our equivalent, and of course it's nice to see how the two basically match up. It's like, ooh, is a PG-13 going to be more lenient than a 12A on this, or a 12A more PG-13 on this? And it's always gives you a nice little point of reference. I always liked my favorite rating. I can't really say I have a favorite rating or anything. Ratings are just there. I mean, sometimes I wonder if we even need them at all or anything, but we're so used to them, maybe don't think it was practical to get rid of them. I have to pass on that argument, basically. Long story short.
All right, well, just this once, we'll do that in this instance. Now, presuming your favorite PG film, me, it's Toy Story, obviously. For you, it's still Jurassic Park, or is it like the first
It's
Lord
probably
of
going
the
to be
Rings
Jurassic.
movie?
No. It's going to be Jurassic Park. It's my childhood favorite. I mean, it's a great film. It's probably not as good as my nostalgia says, but it's a good film.
On that note, we'll end it with some toys who are being caught up with fireworks and killer dinosaurs on an island. And we will say thank you for stopping on by and listening to this podcast. I would say this is one of our most energized, the most electric ones we have done. And thanks to Rob for providing this idea. As always, until then, peace.